You may walk in shadow, but you never walk alone. This is the oracle that I received for Frigg's chariot in Berkano. So Frigg is the charioteer of Venus. The Roman equivalent would be Venus. Venus has moved into Berkano. Moved on the 26th, so it moved yesterday. I'm going to stay there until the 17th of February. And I wanted to bring this in at this point because it seemed particularly poignant to me. I've taken a lot of comfort from that oracle over the last days. And it also spoke to me of something that I think is really important within the Northern tradition, which is that all of the deities, the divinities, whatever it is that you would like to call them, in the Northern tradition have a shadow side. They all have a shadow side. They can all be fallible. They can all get things wrong to a greater extent or to a lesser extent. And it's one of the things that really attracted me to working within the Northern tradition is that it doesn't have this polarizing. Over here is good and over here is evil. And we can distinguish between the two. It's either good or evil. And this was really important to me as a child. It's one of the reasons why I decided to move from I was brought up as a Christian and made my peace with the Christian God. I just said, this is not my path. I need to follow a different path. And I believe that the Northern tradition, part of the medicine that it offers to us is that resistance of polarization, of saying, if this is good, then the opposite to it must be bad. Mm-hmm. It teaches us to respect and to honor otherness, even if we might find challenge within it. It teaches us to look for the wisdom in our own failures, to recognize that we are all fallible, that we can all get things wrong, that life is not always going to go our way, and to find humility within that, which is that sense of recognizing, yes, when I've done things right and I'm proud, that's great. And when I've done things wrong, that's also valid as well. I'm thinking about all of the deities themselves. They get things wrong. They do things that we disagree with, and they're sort of okay with that. I think that part of their teaching is to say, I tried this, didn't work out so well for me. Learn from my example. We have the spaces of Innangard and Utangard, the inner enclosure, the enclosure of the known, and Utangard, the enclosure of the unknown. And it isn't as simple as saying, Innangard is good and Utangard is bad. There are things that we need to travel into Utangard for medicine and wisdom, but it's also a place of fear and risk. It's an embracing of not even grey areas, but of the interweaving all of the time of things that are opposite and different, but that it doesn't mean good and bad. The Aesir and the Vanir, sky gods and the earth gods who battle each other for eons and then make peace by interweaving their communities. The Aesir and the Jotun, who are known as the sort of traditional enemies, and yet there are Jotun who are members of the Aesir. There is wisdom that is sought from them. It's not simple. It's not as simple as saying, this is black, this is white, this is good, this is evil. It sort of doesn't do that. And I find that very helpful. And for me, it's almost like every deity, Frigg is saying this through her oracle of Frigg's Chariot in Berkano. She is saying, I understand the darkness and the shadow. There is nothing that you can shock me with. There is nothing that you can need to feel so much shame for that you couldn't reveal it to me, because I have been down that path as well. It's a teaching and a mentoring through experience. Mm-hmm. And I can see that in the chat. And I do think that this is really important at this present time in history, in particular with the things that are going on in the world. I've been a little bit quiet on social media. I was observing the boycotting and it sort of just come back online, but it really gave me a chance to do some deep reflection around what our voices are for and where we want to be heard, and when we want to have spaces where we are safe and when we want to have spaces where we are able to stand up and speak our truth, even though that doesn't mean that we're necessarily socially safe. And we can see that in the media right now. Space is the ability to have somewhere where we feel that we belong and the ability to recognize that we also sometimes belong in the spaces of risk where we need to be courageous and speak our truth. So I wanted to do an exploration today, which is a challenging exploration, let's say. It's not necessarily a comfortable exploration, but I think that's important. And it honors the Algiz rune. So the Algiz rune, as soon as Chariot has just moved into the space of Algiz, and the new moon is going to be in Algiz as well. So it's a really potent time for Algiz. And when I feel into the energy of Algiz, which can also be called Eihwaz, sits linguistically. We obviously traced its roots back, but it has some double roots, let's say. So it can be Algiz, which is often the energy of the swan. It's the beating wings of the swan, or it can be Eihwaz. It can be the great elk with his mighty horns, or it can be the elk sedge, this very defensive, quite sharp grass that if we pull it, it will cut us. It's that energy of defense as well. For me, when I dip into Algiz, when I invite its energy in, I feel the presence of the rainbow bridge, of that connection between earth and sky, is the energy that weaves backwards and forwards between Innangard and Utangard, between Jotun and Aesir, between Vanir and Aesir. It has a protectiveness to it and a defense mechanism to it as well, and it has a guiding energy too, and I can see it in the footprints of the birds in the mud. The sense of the birds as being spirit animals that move between the earth and the sky, the messengers. It brings in the Valkyrie as well. And when I really need it and it offers me healing, I will feel the wings of the Valkyrie wrap around me, and I will feel their protection, but also their fierceness. And I think that we need that at this moment, and that Algiz offers to us through this period of time. It will be 2 weeks in soon as Chariot, and the new moon is just for one day, but it's a potent energy that moves forward. The moon moves through each rune about once a day, but the new moon and the full moon are very potent energies. It speaks to me not of helplessness, but of how we become the solution, that it doesn't place that, what's happening externally to us. It says you have agency. It's about inspiration, and it's about courage to be the solution, to be the stand for what you know is right and true and good. And it offers its protection when you come from that place. Yes, it can be comforting when you're in a place where you're going, oh, it's really hard right now. Then the Valkyrie will come and put their wings around you, but they're doing so in order to say, what do you need in order to leave the nest again? It's that place of finding courage. And Suzanne saying you use Algiz every day for your morning ritual of protection and connection. And it's such a powerful rune to do for that. I can often feel it's almost like a Valkyrie standing behind me with the wings outstretched, so that I find my brave. I had an email pop into my inbox either Friday or Saturday, and it's a question that comes up quite frequently. And I always answer it in the spirit of the same way. And the question was, I am a person who has no Northern European heritage, and yet the runes are speaking to me, and I'd like to work with them, but I feel as if, can I do that? Am I allowed to do that if I have no Northern European lineage, connection to the land? Can I do that? And I always say, yes, you are. You are allowed to do that. So I believe that the runes speak to us each individually, and that connections of land or of language, or of blood are just some of the ways in which the runes might speak to us. So you might say, yes, I feel a really strong connection to the land, or you might trace your family tree and say, okay, then I've got Anglo-Saxons or Old Norse in my heritage, and I'd like to understand it and honor it. It might be past lives. You've had a past life experience with the runes and you're revisiting that. But in my view, it might also be that the runes said, we want to work with this person. And I don't believe that I or anyone else has the right to dictate who the runes choose to speak to. I think that's their business. I feel so blessed to have that. Who would I be to take that away from somebody else? So I wanted to make that really clear. So I've shared with you 2 beliefs that have formed, and they are just beliefs. These are my personal beliefs that I'm sharing with you. One is about the medicine of the Northern European tradition being a medicine that helps us to resist polarization and to exist within the grey places and to move between different spaces and to accept and to honor otherness within ourselves and within others as well. And the other is that anyone can follow a path with the runes. Okay? So let's move to the Algiz rune. And one of the reasons that I want to start with the Algiz rune is obviously because of the astrological movements. But I'm also really aware, again, that in our world, there are some really uncomfortable and challenging things happening at the moment. And I wanted to acknowledge that this symbol has been used in the past and is being used in the present as part of Nazi or neo-Nazi ideology and symbolism. And that's a challenging thing when those things, make me not want to be in that space. I was like, no, it's important to go into that space. This is me taking on the brave at this point and saying, I need to acknowledge that this is the case. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the history of the Algiz rune and how this came to be. So the Algiz rune comes from the Elder Futhark, really, really old, ancient Futhark or alphabet. The iterations of this symbol that are used within the neo-Nazi ideology are much more recent. So there was a man called Guido List. He called himself Guido von List because he had pretensions. He was not necessarily a particularly nice person, let's say, but he had a channeling. He channeled a Futhark. So he channeled a new set of runes. It was not the Elder Futhark. It wasn't the Anglo-Saxon or the Norse or the Icelandic or any of the others, the Gothic or all of the other alphabets and symbols that in some way flowed down from the Elder Futhark. And his Futhark, he called it the Armanin Futhark. Shorter, it's not 24, it's 18. And he called them different names, and there were some symbols that are not in the traditional Futharks, and there were some that were recognizable. And he brought in two symbols. One was identical to the Algiz rune, and he called this man. And to him, it meant life force. And the other one was an upside-down version of the Algiz rune, which he called Ear. And that means death. Now, List's work was then taken by a man called Carl Maria Willigut. And he was the one who then took that and he adapted it even more and he brought it in to the symbols used within the Nazi Party. And this symbol here can be found on pharmacies. So, for example, the Nazi symbol for a pharmacy included the man rune, which means life. And it was also found in things like records in concentration camps of the date of people's deaths and on gravestones where it could be, you would get the symbol and then you get the date of birth and then you get the date of death. And it is used now, mainly in the man form, within neo-Nazi symbolism. So it's quite a circuitous route. And I do think it's important to say it isn't the same rune as the Algiz rune. No. List created those symbols. However, the color associations, some of the correspondences, some of the symbols that we use as modern rune workers working with the Algiz rune have taken that route through here and Man and have flowed back into the Algiz rune. And I think it's important to recognize that as much as we might like to say totally different and to use the words appropriation, And again, what I want to be really clear is that I am not saying right or wrong. I'm saying this is a topic that it's really important for us to explore. And I looked at this through the lens of those two beliefs that I created, that I've created and work with. And I went, there's some difficult things here for me, which I work with the Algiz rune to help me to make peace with. So my first one was the belief that there is no good and no evil per se. There is a movement backwards and forwards. There are things that are wrong. There are things that are right. For me, when I feel into Nazi ideology and when I feel into what happened in the concentration camps, that feels like evil. That's my emotional responses today. That feels like evil. And if that is the case, is everything else that I just said wrong? And I went to the Algiz rune and I sort of presented this. I said, I'm finding this really, really hard. In the Norse mythologies, there are things that are, there are deeds that are done by Odin, my own patron, which I do not condone. and which I find objectionable. And yet I'm able to work with him as a deeply trusted guide and mentor. Because in my view, those formative experiences of, he's said to commit the first murder, are part of what has created his wisdom and his ability to internalize those things and to say, I did that. I don't project it outside myself. I don't pretend that somebody else did that. Are part of why I respect him in his wisdom. And yet I can't find I can't find the same compassion for human beings as I'm finding for him in that moment. And I spoke to the Algiz Rune about this, and the Algiz Rune offered me not a complete answer, but an offering, let's say. The Algiz Rune said, bad things have been done by bad people. Bad things have been done by good people. Yeah. Good things have been done by good people. And good things have been done by bad people. There are things that are fact. Those things are fact. Does that mean that the bad person who did the bad thing had been bad from the beginning of their lifetime when they were a tiny, tiny baby to the time that they died? No. But it does mean that in the moment they did that, I don't know what list, Villigut, what they have gone on past death, and whatever it is, their life journeys. I don't know those things, and I'm going to leave those things to Odin and the Nornir, whatever it is, to work through. And yet still recognize that there are some things where you could say, in that moment, what you chose was totally and utterly bad, and you have to own that, Offering this as I think, part of the work that we need to do if we want to embrace the runes in that way. And part of that reason is for the second belief that I still hold to be true and I still want to work with and to honor, which is that I believe that anyone can work with the runes. The runes are, to me, interesting in that they are part of a heritage of what could be classified now as the dominant culture in our society. Is sort of a white, now maybe masculinized culture. And they are part of the heritage of that culture. They haven't been passed down, through generation after generation in an unbroken line of indigenous wisdom that is held and held sacred by a small group of people. They have travelled in all sorts of different directions. They're used by lots of different people, and they're part of a huge weaving. And they've been underground for a long period of time, and they have come back up. And one of the reasons why I think that they are available and open to anyone to work with. And if I believe that, I have to believe that they were open and available for List to work with, for Villigut to work with, And that's quite challenging, because I would like to be able to say in this space, they were appropriated and that's wrong and we're going to take them back. And there are some people who will say that, and just to be clear, and I do not disagree with them, but I still had to feel into my own stance on this. So, I am not a member of a heathen community, for example. I'm an independent practitioner, let's say, honouring that there are other independent practitioners. And that's the belief that I hold. And I had to breathe into that and work with that and say, if I want to be able to say to someone coming into my community who's asking me with openness and genuineness, I really want to work within this tradition, but I don't feel as if I'm necessarily entitled to. And to know in my deep heart that that is absolutely their choice and that's their business with the runes, then I have to respect that for somebody who does something that I really, really despise and detest with the runes that I love. And I have to be okay with that. So I think where I've come to with that one, and again in consultation with the Algiz Rune, bearing in mind we've only just come to the beginning of a cycle of work with the Algiz Rune, and so I am hoping that a lot will come through via my Algiz Rune to support me in this, is that Algiz and Eihwaz are much older, more ancient energies, and therefore I believe more powerful and able to resist later interpretations of them, or corruptions is the word I'm going to use. I'm actually more comfortable with the word corrupt than I am with appropriate, because to me it does feel like a corruption of a rune that had a particular meaning. We could choose to say, can't work with that rune anymore because I'm seeing it out there and it's being used by this group of people and I cannot be associated with those people. Yeah. But I feel that at this point, Algiz or Eihwaz, the rune as I have worked with it, the rune of protection and of guidance, is saying you have a role in offering protection and you have a role in offering guidance, however, not fully formed it is at this point. Be my voice. Other people can have voices and they can choose what they want to choose, but by being silent, I'm not taking on the role of a protector of the energy of the rune as I understand it. So I don't need to say, I am right and you are wrong. I just need to say, this is what Algiz means to me, and this is the magic and the love and the beauty that it brings into my life and the lives of others. And I believe that Algiz will shine through that. Well, there is an invitation from me. And I can see, Maggie, I know you've been posting on this topic as well. Thank you very much for that. There is an invitation from me to use your own voice, either for yourself or exploration through the coming months. We have the Algiz rune in the new moon, and then we have the Anzus rune, which is the rune of communication, the rune of ecstasy, of the voice coming through. It's the rune of Odin as well. There is a real opportunity to be part of a conversation and part of a dialogue. And I think that's the thing. It's not being part of a monologue and saying, I am right, you're right, I think, but it's about being able to be in conversation. So let's be in conversation with each other about our love of the runes and what they mean to us. Let's make that our place to stand, not the I am for this in all of that. That brilliance. Maggie's saying 2 of my favourite runes. Well, I'm going to be quiet at that point on this topic because it is really important to me. And I've chosen this as the place to sort of start a dialogue. And you will know that there are obviously other runes as well that we can come to. If you find this helpful, I'm more than happy to come and bring some other conversations and dialogues about the other runes that have been reinterpreted through later, younger Futhark and what that might mean for us and how we might work with them. Do let me know what you think. And Suzanne is saying, yeah, they're magical tools. They can be used for good or bad. And because of the fact that they do not, I don't believe the runes either, it's not just the deities, but the runes do not deny the shadow. They don't say, right, the shadow's over there and it's not part of me. They say, no, the shadow is part of our wisdom path. And therefore you have to learn to embrace it. And so they do contain them within them. But I believe that always, the deeper the shadow, the brighter the light as well on either side. So maybe we're just saying we can be the voice of the light too within this. And humans can corrupt anything if they choose to. They absolutely can. It's possible to do that. And I don't think necessarily it's a question of saying, and so therefore we sort of ditch all the things that have been corrupted. No, we'd have nothing left. We have to treasure what's precious to us as well. So those are our sun movements. So the sun will be in Algiz, and then it will move later in the month. So it spends 2 weeks in each of the runes. It'll be 2 weeks in Algiz before moving into Teiwaz, moving into the third 8, which is the rune of the 8 of synthesis and synergy. The last, literally 8. Well, I can't even put 8 them. Not 8 was it? Is 8. The first 8 runes are also called the 8, the families, the Aetir. There are 3 Aetir that are made up of 8 runes in each. They are the runes of maturity, of synergy, of bringing together, which again so much speaks to me of not pushing apart polarities, but rather embracing them and bringing them in and weaving them together as being part of the path of working with the runes. So we've got our 2 moons and we have our 2 suns. If you want to know about all of the planetary movements the coming month, then you're going to want to be a member of Suna's Star Wheel. So I have all of the planetary movements for the full year are in Suna's Star Wheel, along with the oracles. So you can go and you can look at the inspiration oracles for each of them. I also release them, not all of them, but a lot of them on my Instagram channel. And you will also find your wild voice meditation sessions, they're like guided journaling sessions for your new moon and your full moon are in there. There's lots of other resources, including our new story. So I'm sharing a story from my archives, and this month's story is from Her Mode, So it's the Sons of Odin. So if you're a member of Suna Star Wheel, you can go and look at those and learn a lot more. And I'll be releasing my full Oracle little video all about the planetary movements for Suna Star Wheel members before Wednesday when we get our new moon. Lisa is saying my sun rune is Algiz, a part of me light and part shadow. And Esther is saying Algiz is my sun rune too. Also, Algiz is my son's sun rune. It is his 10th birthday today. And yes, he was born a little bit late. He was going to be in Perth but he decided to embrace early. Apologies. He was going to be in Perth, but he embraced Algiz as his sun rune. So yes, love Algiz people. So many people there that we have got 2 Algiz sun rune people in the group today. So with that, let's have a little play with your runes that you have. What rune have you brought forward? Are you going to be working with either through this coming lunar cycle if you choose a rune of the month, or you can choose one just for your reading today? Let me know. Share what runes you've got if you are here with me live. If you're watching the recording, it is worthwhile sticking around to hear the oracles, because sometimes it might be that one of the runes is in your birth runes or that you are working with it anyway. And you can still share the rune that you're working with. You just won't get a mini reading for them at the moment, but please do say in the chat. It's always lovely to know what runes people have and that they're working on. And you can also ask questions. So either I or someone in the community will answer if you have questions. So, you know what I don't have on my pad? They're ready to look and see what we have got. So Suzanne Othala is my new moon rune. Now, Othala is another one that has been, let's say, corrupted, and yeah, a very interesting rune to look at. And I'm feeling very hurt on behalf of Othala at the moment. I'm working through that before I could do something on Othala for you. And then Meggie has got Hagalaz. The Changemaker. Interesting. And Christy, I've got Teiwaz. So we've got the Algiz, and then we're moving forward. San, Meggie, and Othala. We'll be moving into Teiwaz with the sun later this month. Chose me this morning. I like it. Suki, I've got Isa. Isa seems to be the rune I draw every day. And when a rune comes up over and over again, often they are offering very specific medicine. And sometimes it can be annoying because you think, I'm sure that I've got through that. Aren't I resting enough? Aren't I finding my stillness enough? And then it still keeps coming back, and that can be frustrating. I've tended to find that once that period is done, once the rune you've received its messages, and you know what it is that it had to offer you, that it could be a much more powerful relationship with the rune afterwards. There can be really strong medicine that lasts because they've spent such a period of time with you. And it says, I'm sticking to Algiz for the next lunar month. I've got a few things to finish off as it's Elaz for a Drazzle's path. Indeed, Esther. With the horns there as well. Fabulous. Let's have a look then. So we've got Suzanne with Othala. I'm really loving the Othala rune at the moment. It's feeling very present for me. And it's speaking to me so much of the boundaries and the permeability between the different realms that it talks. So if we think about Othala as being the rune, here we go, here's our Othala rune, as being the rune of estate and of land and of the ancestors. And there is that stability there, but it's also the rune of enclosure. If you think about it as being the sort of space of enclosure that says, this is where I belong. We can have that sense, that moment of belonging. Cher, thank you. No, you're not too late. We've got 2 Teiwaz there. And it is that fascination with the way in which our relationship with the land has created things like the great towns, like the cities. If you think about London being on the rivers on the Thames, and ports that are near to water, the first settlements were always near water, either for fish or to obviously have water available or to enable travel. The idea that people who had a fish-rich diet had much higher levels of omega oils going into their systems that the human brain developed, like especially because of that. All of those things come through. It's this relationship with the way in which human society was founded foremost on our relationship with land. And so much of our cultures come from our relationship with land. And that sometimes I think in modern culture, we've almost forgotten that because we think that we've got dominance over the land, and that we've created these little cocooned spaces, and that this is another realm of Othala, a more modern realm of Othala, or maybe not. What's the word? As we learn to build, we learn to shape our land. This is a new aspect of Othala that we came to know around the built environment, the environment of home instead, that starts to interplay and work with the land, and to shape different landscapes for us. And we also have all of the boundaries that we make around who we associate as being, I belong with this person, and then this isn't the space of otherness. Othala is the boundary between Utangard and Innangard. It's the boundary that we have to cross so that we know where we are, that comes with Othala. And Othala is one of the very latest runes in the Elder Futhark. It's normally seen as being the 23rd rune. Sometimes it flips, and it's the 24th, and Dargath is put in that position. But it is such a complex rune in terms of the understandings of boundaries. And an important rune for us as magical beings, people working with energy to understand and to work with, in terms of what we have internalized as the rules of what's me, what's you, what's mine, what's yours, all of those sorts of things. I think that when we work with the Othala rune, we can both respect its energies, this is this and this is not, and we can play with them a little bit. So there's something there for me, Suzanne, around manifestation with the Othala rune. And there's a claiming of sovereignty, which often comes with the Manaz rune, but this is different. This is a different understanding. There's almost a deliberate disruption of the rules of ownership as have been laid out through our laws and our understandings of money, and an invitation from the Othala rune to you to think about ownership in a different way in terms of perhaps stewardship or caretaking, or where we are allowed to go even if the rules say that we're not. A little bit of rule breaking going on there, which I find interesting with Othala, because Othala likes rules. But I think it's almost like once you know the rules, it's like then you can move through the Othala boundaries in some ways. So I think what it's bringing to me, Suzanne, so I hope that's helpful for you. Then, Maggie, you've got the Hagalaz rune. So Hagalaz it's the first rune in the second 8. So I've talked about the third 8, the third family, being the sort of the place of synergy where these sort of opposites come through. For me, Hagalaz is the disruptor rune. So the first runes create the primal energies through which we understand, this is the way that life works, Just when we think that we've got it, Hagalaz comes along. It's a little bit like if you think about a baby in the womb there. I'm in the water, it's dark. There's noise normally. I'm swooshing about. There's my cord and all of those things. This is what I feel like. This is how I get nourishment. And then you're born. And that's Hagalaz. It's like literally everything changes. You're now going to breathe air, and you're going to receive nourishment through your mouth, whereas you're receiving it before through your belly button. And it's going to be cold, and the noises are going to be totally different, and everything that you've heard is going to be totally different. It's the Hagalaz rune. It's the storm that we weather in order to discover the next version of ourselves, the next iteration of ourselves. And that's what it's feeling like to me, Maggie, is that, again, perhaps this is because of the Algiz rune. If you think that when we do these single rune readings, the reading is coloured by everything else that's happening around it. So it's coloured by my connection with as the reader, with you as the person, and by the rune, but also by the energies, the planetary energies that are playing, and the strong Algiz energy that we've been invoking and calling forth. And so it's almost calling out that the guide, the mentor, the brave, the courageous in you, and it's saying that is the Hagalaz rites of passage that are allowing that to come through. I don't think it's necessarily saying you need to forge through a rite of passage right now. There's a celebration element to this as well, Maggie. I think it's a little bit about looking at where those rites of passage have taken you and recognizing the strength of you in this moment through those. And literally, as I'm speaking, I've got hail has started to come down outside of my window. It was just rain. Now there is hail. So it's sort of saying commune with the hail. Honestly, I kid you not. So it's very strong energy for you there, Maggie. They just decided to bring the hail for you, as we're discussing the rune of the hailstorm. I think it's about recognizing the storms that are happening around us all of the time, and that some of them are meant for us, and that some of them are witnessing that we're witnessing that. Is it Herminia, the current storm front that's going through the UK at the moment? Obviously, there are other weather fronts, there are other forms of storm energy moving across our Earth all of the time. And it's sort of recognizing that force as being a continuously present force over our globe. Even though for us, it can feel sequential. For us, it can feel like, oh, here is one storm that happens to be impacting on me right now. That could make us feel as if it's the only storm, but it's sort of saying, no, the storm energy is there all of the time and we are moving through it, in and out, weaving with the energy of the storm and celebrating that as part of life, that I feel it coming through there. So yes, we're going to look at Christy. You've got Teiwaz, and then Cher. We'll see if anything comes separately for you with your Teiwaz rune. So Teiwaz, okay. So Teiwaz is the first rune of the third eight. So you remember that I was talking about the third eight and the energy of the third eight. Berkano is in the third eight, in the third eight. So here we have our Teiwaz rune. Teiwaz is an interesting rune because it comes at the beginning of the third eight. I was looking within it for the opposites, how they weave together, and yet Teiwaz itself feels like a very simple rune. It's the arrow in flight, it's the sword raised high. It's the action that needs to be taken. It's almost that sense of if you've got Algiz, your Algiz rune that's coming through, and then we move into Suelo. So we have the guidance and then the knowing, the knowledge of the direction of travel that we're going to take with the Suelo rune, which is the inner knowing. So Algiz can often feel like an external guidance coming through. Suelo is that knowing inside, and then Teiwaz is the action that we choose to take. But it's, I think, a recognition that when we choose to be in action, even if it's the simplicity of action, we immediately become the cause of an effect. So our Teiwaz action will have an effect. And it can be that sense and that knowledge of the effect that can hold us back because we're not sure what it is that, we're worried about the consequences. We're worried about being read wrongly, about not being, we might have this idea of perfection in some way. And we're never going to reach that. And so we hesitate and we don't let the arrow shoot, when it should, or we don't hold the sword when we should. And I think that that's what's speaking to me, Christy, for you, is that sense of really trusting yourself and following that instinct and moving forward. And perhaps recognizing that that act of bravery is when the simplicity then divides, because the action immediately excludes other possibilities. They're shed in that moment and new possibilities are born. Isn't that what magic is, Is that taking the path, choosing the path and taking the path and following it. So there's a real take the action that your heart speaks of in this moment for you, Christy, I can feel. And then with Cher, there's a little bit like the step after that for you, Cher, is that recognition that when we take an action, we think about the external consequences that it might have and then how they'll rebound on us. Sometimes we can be afraid of that, sometimes we can be excited about it. But it's that recognition that that rebound moment can never be predicted fully. We might be excited by an action and think, oh, this is going to have this possibility, and that's the motivation for it. Or we might be nervous about it. But once it's out in the world, then it comes and it circles back and lands within us. And we can't predict that part either. We can only respond to the next moment. I feel as if Tia wants to speak at this point and give a little bit of extra emphasis to the Algiz rune. You remember the Algiz rune exploration that I did around bad people can do bad things and good people can do bad things, and vice versa. And it is that real sense of self-awareness and self-forgiveness in that we might look back on the actions that we've taken and said, I was a good person trying to do a good thing, and it was received as a bad thing. Or we might feel like, actually, I thought I was a good person, but in that moment I wasn't. And we might feel a lot of shame about that. You know, I wanted to do a good thing, but it wasn't a good thing. And I feel like the bad person. There's a lot of labeling. And Tyr sort of says, in order to move forward, you have to let go of those things. You have to receive the wisdom and the knowledge of that. And then you have to release that so that you can let fly your next arrow as well. It's all of that self-judgment, whether you judged yourself as being, oh, I did a wonderful and amazing thing, or you judged yourself and you're like, no, I did a terrible, horrendous thing. It's then saying, you're a new person right now. Right now, you're an absolutely new person. What are you going to choose now? That's what I'm feeling with the Teiwaz rune there. Suki, let's look at your Issa rune. I can see you've posted there that you lost your 20-year-old kitty on Friday. Oh. Yeah, that we say hello to our young cat. We only have young cats now. I think our oldest cat is now 4, but I really feel for you there, Suki. Because, yeah, my cat that I lost in 2024, she was 19, and they never really leave. Yeah, they're always still there. Like so they cross the bridge. If I remember the Othala rune, you know, they're still part of the all. You know, it's just that they're on the other side of that Othala barrier for us now. So thank you for sharing that. Let's feel into the Issa rune for you. So the Issa rune, again, I've got my theme for the week is simplicity. I was feeling into our themes of the week. And I can feel that sense of simplicity coming through from the Teiwaz rune. The Teiwaz rune talking about what do we need to let go in order to fly forward. The Issa rune is even more simple. It's just a single line. And it's really speaking to me of silence, Suki. It's not stillness. Often Issa speaks of stillness. It says, give yourself permission to rest, give yourself permission to be in stillness. But this is very much talking to me about silence. It's almost that moment at the very beginning of time, according to the Northern European legends. We had Innangard, the great void. And it's almost like Issa is claiming that space a little bit and saying, the great void had ice on one side and fire on the other, but they were so apart from each other that they both thought that they were alone. And the ice liked it that way, you know? The ice was like, oh, you know, in this place of deep silence, where I don't know if you've ever listened to silence that can feel so profound that it almost feels loud, you know, or the other way around, that you can get a loudness that's so loud and intense that you couldn't discern a single individual sound from within it. Funnily enough, I'm thinking about like rainstorms, so you get those pounding on the roof and you can't hear anything. The silence could be as loud as that, you know? And it's sort of saying to me, allow yourself to be filled with the silence, rather than what we often do is we say, I'm going to try and release the thoughts, the intrusive thoughts. They're there and they're intruding, and we have to push them away. It's sort of saying inviting in the silence more to fill that space is a different way of doing that same thing. Working with silence as something that's not an absence, that is actually a power and a tangible, like almost like tactile thing. The intensity with which we can embrace silence is what I'm hearing there. And I'm not feeling much else, Suki. Honestly, it's almost like I can see a bell with wrapped in cloth, like fibers of a tapestry, sort of almost like wrapping around it. And it is that womb-like space that I'm feeling within that. You know? But it's a different type of womb. It's the womb of the earth. You know, it's the silence there. That's what it wants to bring. So I'm going to leave it there for you with that one. So I hope that's helpful there, Suki. And then Lisa with your Jera rune. So the rune of the year. Here we go with the Jera rune. So the Jera rune actually brings ice and fire into its body. It's got the ice on one side and the fire on the other. You can see it as the two halves of the year of summer and winter circling each other. Ooh. It feels supportive to me, Lisa. very supportive, very nurturing, very much. There's almost a sense of like, yeah, all of those things that you don't want to do, Lisa, Jera goes, yeah, don't do them. All of those things that you do want to do, Jera's like, yeah, do them. It's a bit like, I've got your back, Lisa. And I agree, is all it's saying. There's a book called Slow Productivity, which I really, really like. And it talks so much about the way in which in modern culture we've equated busyness with productivity. And the Yarrow Rune really speaks to me of this slow productivity. You said that busy equated to productive. What about quality? What about quality and depth and expertise? And it's sort of also, so it's not just saying do the things that you really want to do. It's saying, and take the time that you want to take on them. And know that the Yarrow Rune is championing you in that. I can almost taste, it's not even like honey, it's like treacle. It's like that slowness of treacle moving around. I don't know if there's any cooking in your future, Lisa, but there is that sort of brewing cauldron-like energy that I'm feeling there as well. However long the task takes, that's how long it takes. Being in the slow energy and recognizing that as being, I always think about it as being like the energy of fruitfulness rather than productivity. It's fruitfulness. The seasonality of the tree. It's not producing fruit all of the time because it has other things that it needs to do. It needs to get energy and it needs to do budding and it needs to have it do its wintering. It's all of those things. And it's sort of saying, be a stand for that in your life and know that I am a stand for you. Esther with your Algiz rune. We've still got Algiz out, or have I put it back into the pack? Let's have a little check. No, and to bring our Algiz rune out. Here we go. Here's our Algiz rune coming back there. Obviously for you, I'm already sort of getting the reading a little bit coloured with the antlers. Those are coming up very strongly. And the sense of the Algiz rune. We can often think about, we can talk quite generically about guidance. We can say, generic be, we are accessing guidance right now. But for you, there is a specificity around guidance and the recognition that the Algiz rune connects us. And I think this is perhaps for everyone as well. The Algiz rune can connect us very potently and very powerfully to our own individual guides to say, this is who you are supposed to be working with right now. So if you have that sense of like a gnawing in the heart, like the dark night of the soul, that sense of I need support, but I don't know where it's coming from, calling on Algiz isn't just a calling on the protective energy of Algiz and saying, I'm going to have Algiz sort of around me. It's Algiz as a messenger that goes out and says, Esther needs this right now. I'm paging so-and-so, and then bringing them back to you. And I feel as if that is for everyone, in a sense. And that, yeah, because I know that you've been doing work with Algiz anyway, Esther. And I think there is a recognition, which I know you're doing anyway, of the role that Algiz souls take when they are in their fully expressed selves, in acting as the guide and the mentor for others, even if they don't mean to. It's sort of something you can't help doing. It's like, you're sort of like falling off a log, offering help, guidance and support to others. And there is an invitation to be really comfortable with that. I think that's coming through the Algiz rune for you, Esther. Being really comfortable in that role and not doubting yourself in that wants to come through from Algiz. Last but not least, Grace with your Eihwaz rune. So Eihwaz is the rune of the staff. Mine of staff behind me here, one of my staffs. This is my guardian staff for my space. Probably can't see, but she's got all of the runes on her. And she's got eyes. She's got 8 eyes painted on her, all looking in different directions. And then she's got a crystal on the top. So it's like the 9 worlds. Her eyes are on all of the 9 worlds. And so she's behind me. She's made of a silver birch branch. And she's not very straight. She's a bit wonky, but I like her. So this is the Eihwaz rune. So it's got some vertical stave, and then it's got the thick going up and the thick going down at the top and the bottom. And it's fun because the Eihwaz rune, it does speak of the staff. It speaks of the support that we can use when we're a wayfarer on the road. It is also incredibly helpful for trance work. So I have a shorter staff than that I use when I'm seated doing trance work. And she, I don't know why they're he's and she's, it's just the way that they are both a man and she, is curved at the top so I can lean on her and sway while I'm doing my work, particularly sieve work is what she's used for, or save, as they might call it. And so they can serve quite different purposes, these different forms of support that the Eihwaz rune offers to us. So again, I think that there's a specificity there that we picked up on in Esther's reading for Algiz. There's also coming through with Eihwaz, sort of saying, allow Eihwaz to come through in multiple different forms. It's available there for you to play with and come through in multiple different forms as the staff. That is the as above, so below, connecting the different worlds. It's different to Othala, but Othala sort of brings in some of that Eihwaz energy. Eihwaz, again, is in the second 8, so it's a little bit of the disruptor. It's a claiming of power. It's a saying, I'm going to travel. What support do I need in order to venture out of Innangard, out of the known and out into the unknown? That sort of brave step to do it, but also the humble step of recognizing I'm still going to take a kit with me. I'm not an idiot. I'm going to ask people what might be useful for me along the way with the Eihwaz rune. So there's a building of wisdom, past Hagalaz, north is Isa and Jera, as we move into Teiwaz, and then we go, okay, so I'm starting to get a hang of this a little bit, the adventure of life and what I might need to have the adventure of life. But what struck me with this Teiwaz rune is that I often think of the Teiwaz rune as being upright as the staff like that, but you can turn it a little bit like the Suelo rune. And obviously when you've taken the full turn, you turn it 180 degrees, it's identical again. And it's like the sky has become the earth and the earth has become the sky, if you think about it as being like the pillar or the literally Yggdrasil, the world tree, that they can sort of flip. And it's a reminder to me, it comes back a little bit to what I was talking about in terms of polarity. It's sort of that sense of like nothing is as simple as it seems, that we're talking about good and bad and Innangard and Utangard. It's that recognition that for one person, Innangard, like the place of belonging, their Innangard is somebody else's Utangard. And that sometimes through life, a place that we felt really comfortable and at home and we felt like this is my place of belonging, life can sometimes flip. And we're just like, it's not my place of belonging anymore. My place of belonging has moved and I need to go and find it. No? And the Eihwaz rune then becomes the staff that helps us to go and find it as well. So there's that energy of the shift and the flip. Eihwaz and Jera are right bang in the middle of the Elder Futhark and the 12th and 13th runes. And I think that sometimes this is true in terms of our journey of life, that when we've got that established sense of belonging and in a storm comes and things shift and they change and we go through the dark night of the soul. And then suddenly there's this moment of empowerment with the Eihwaz rune that says, you don't have to put up with it. What's the journey that you need to take to find your new space of belonging again? And I quite like that as a final rune. Maybe that's Grace why your came in last. As a final message from the runes today, in a world that is changing fast, and there are still, for those of you who are subscribed to my newsletter, there are still many things to celebrate and to have hope in. And there are many things that I think the world is calling us to find our brave a little bit. And that sense that when we make that decision and we say, okay, what was comfortable is now not comfortable, I need to be the one to start to walk. And it brings back all the way us back to Frigg and Berkano. You may walk in shadow, but you never walk alone. Yes, we have Frigg and Berkano. We have the deity and energy there and what she's offering, that sense of protection from Berkano. But we also have our Eihwaz staffs, those things that we have earned, that we have crafted, that we've created and shaped. The life wisdom that we carry with us, each of us, is the most powerful staff that we have, and the communities that we choose to be part of are our most powerful allies. So thank you to all of you for being the allies with me today and for sharing your thoughts and insight. Please do keep them coming. You can email me, you can DM me, you can post within the Half Space or on the YouTube channel from this video. Let's keep the conversations that that I've certainly not initiated because they were already happening elsewhere in the world, that I've sought to sort of make my contribution to. And I'd love to hear from you about the themes and the thoughts and the explorations that we've shared today. Thank you so much, everybody who's been with me and shared your runes. I hope that you've enjoyed your readings. And for those of you who are joining me on the recording, many blessings to you. And do not forget that soon as Star will, the Oracle, the full month's Oracle, will be coming out. It will either be in the morning of the new moon or the day before, if I can get it out for you then. But for all Soon as Star Will members, that is there. Lots of love to you all. Speak to you very soon.